13 doing some research on it, and back then, the price of Bitcoin was only $50. Today is more like 9,500.
Hello, gentlemen and ladies, and you're in between as well. Hi.
Hey, you're watching TechEDTV. Today we're bringing you Henry Insert and all his knowledge on Bitcoin, blockchain, and the hyperledgers. Watch next.
Most of other altcoins, because they are some sort of a fork from Bitcoin.
Hello, Henry. How are you doing?
How you doing, Edwin? Pleasure to be here.
Tell us, Henry. Wow, it's been like how many years since you learned about Bitcoin?
It's been 6 or 7 years now.
6 or 7 years.
Yes.
Wow. So you're like one of the first Bitcoin
OGs.
enthusiasts.
Yes, I guess you could say that. I started in 2013 doing some research on it, and back then, the price of Bitcoin was only $50. Today is more like $9,500. So we've come a long way. Yes.
Wow. So and then besides that, I'm pulling here on the screen. You guys are going to see that an article from the IEEE Edge Computing magazine, where they describe all the different ledger systems. So we have Bitcoin in 2008. So actually, you were maybe 5 years after Bitcoin was created, maybe.
Possibly, yes. The actual Bitcoin blockchain wasn't launched until 2009, but the concept itself, including the white paper, was around in 2008. Yes.
And then we have here in the same table, like you can see on the screen, Dash 2014, and we have Ethereum in 2014, also like some of those new coins. And then one of the aspects that says here, smart contract, Dash doesn't have any smart contracts, but Ethereum is like basically is still non-private. What do you mean about the smart contracts in Ethereum here? And anyway, so let's begin with Bitcoin to make things a little less complicated. But you see this chart shows you like all the different hyperledgers, and we're going to know about the ledger system, what it is first. But that's a history about that comes from this crypto coin. So tell us, Henry, what's your experience with what's the difference between a ledger and the cryptocurrency, so people can understand in very simple terms what it is?
Okay, so in very simple term, what Bitcoin is, I'm going to go very slowly. It is a decentralized, peer-to-peer global network. I think we all know what a global network is. Basically, it's a conjunction of computers which share information. It is decentralized, meaning that they're located all over the world. They have no single point of failure. And it is peer-to-peer in the sense that I can communicate or make a transaction directly with you on the Bitcoin network without there being somebody in between, like an intermediary or somebody in charge.
So we don't need a middleman. That's what you're saying.
So exactly. So you don't need a middleman, and that is very key. Now, at the very heart of Bitcoin, what you have is a technology called the blockchain. And so what the blockchain is, it is a type of ledger that keeps a track of all the transactions that are occurring on Bitcoin and that have ever occurred on the Bitcoin network. And so what you have is participants, any participant on the Bitcoin network, particularly with their computers, can verify and confirm the transactions that are going on the network. And the protocol of the Bitcoin network itself allows for these participants to come into an agreement, to come into consensus, essentially. In other words, to determine which transactions are valid and which transactions are not. Correct.
So in simple terms, let's say like I give you 10 Bitcoins and you grab the 10 Bitcoin and split it into 5 Bitcoins to 2 of your friends. Then it will record that Edwin sends 10 Bitcoins to Henry, and Henry split those 10 Bitcoin into 2 transactions of 5 Bitcoins, one from Alice and one from Rob, for example.
Correct. Only except that on the Bitcoin blockchain, there's no personal information.
Of course. So it's an identifier that identifies the transaction because it has to have an identifier.
Correct.
And then, but it doesn't match to you. It doesn't match to Edwin. It doesn't match to Alice, or it doesn't match to Rob. Totally anonymous.
Correct. Yes. Although the transactions themselves can be tracked on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Right.
Yes.
No, of course. So one of the things that then we see all this crypto, then it's encrypted, it's authenticated, so all the different nodes that are on that network can validate that transaction occur, and the transaction propagates through all the nodes. So then your Bitcoin now is owned not by you, 5 bitcoins are owned by Alice and 5 bitcoins now are owned by Rob. And the entire network knows that happened.
Yes, and it's important to point out that it all happens cryptographically, which means through a branch of mathematics known as cryptography. The entire network is backed and secured by mathematics. And with cryptography, we can be absolutely sure that transactions that occur on the network are valid transactions, and we can also make sure that the transactions are secure as well.
So in other words, what you're saying is that there is no way that I can then grab that 5 coins that were sent to Alice and put them under my name, because there will be a signature, some sort of a cryptography mechanism that will protect the transaction from being tampered.
Correct. So any bogus transactions would not be able to go through the network, because all the computers on the network cross-check each other, and if the mathematics behind the transactions don't check off, then the transaction does not occur. This is how Bitcoin basically secures itself from hackers or anybody who is trying
Anybody
to
that wants to tamper on the
on the blockchain. Exactly.
Yeah. So this is a certainty that, like, for example, that I gave you money or somebody gave me money, and at one point in time that money will reside there, because simply I just need to have my wallet,
correct,
with the private key to connect to the public key that where the transaction occurred in
correct,
the in the system. So we're going to show here that on the screen that there are 2 keys.
Correct.
There's the private key
the
and
private
the public
key and the public key. And the beauty with cryptography is that, well, first of all, with the public key, it allows you to receive bitcoins, but only with the private key are you capable of sending bitcoins. The beauty of the Bitcoin blockchain is that because it's all based in mathematics, the network itself can be absolutely sure that any transaction came from your wallet, because your wallet contains the private key. Without getting too much complicated, the private key is used to sign the transaction on the network. Let's say, for example, I'm trying to send you a Bitcoin. That transaction needs to be signed by my private key, and the network can verify that it came from my private key. Correct. And the beauty of it is that the network verifies that without, of course, revealing what my private key is, because that would
because of the mathematics that you can see, the private key gets funneled into the algorithm that verifies this transaction, and you can use the public key, which is known, and
correct,
then the public key can be used to verify that came from that private key generator. So it's
yes,
key then to keep the private key as secure as possible.
Yes, it is absolutely essential if you have a Bitcoin wallet to learn how to secure your Bitcoins. And this is usually done currently through a series of words, or sometimes you can even extract the private key from your wallet. But in any case, you must be able to secure that phrase or series of words or private key, just in case you ever lose your wallet. You can recover your Bitcoins at a later date.
So in other words, what you're saying is that the private key, if I get it from you, I get your wallet.
Correct. You never give out your private key to anybody, because if you do, then your Bitcoins will be stolen. Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty sad.
Mm-hmm.
But tell me, like in your case, Henry, like you have experience of almost 8 years or 9 years or more on this world. What do you do for your wallet? If you don't mind sharing with the audience, what do you recommend?
I use a number of wallets.
You use a number of wallets?
Yes. Okay. There are quite a number of wallets, and most of them are open source, freely available on the internet. There are wallets that you can get for your desktop, for your mobile cell phone. And you just got to be sure that whenever you install the wallet, that you're able to secure the seed phrase or the private key if you can extract it. That's all you need.
And in terms of basically, we've been discussing everything about Bitcoin. Does the same logic applies to all the other coins? Is it the same?
Generally, yes. Most of other altcoins, because they are some sort of a fork from Bitcoin.
Let's stop you there.
Okay.
To our audience, what's an altcoin and why is it
Important.
Important.
So an altcoin is sort of like an experiment. It's used for experimental purposes. Because Bitcoin is open source, meaning that anybody can take the code of Bitcoin and create their own coin. So, for example, if you wanted to create your own altcoin, you could call it Edwin Coin.
Media coin.
Media Coin, and have all the properties, very similar properties as Bitcoin. Now, whether or not people adopt your Media Coin is a whole other matter altogether.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's a different thing. But like in other words, what you're saying is the majority of the altcoins came from Bitcoin.
Yes.
And including Ethereum.
Well, Ethereum was a special case because Ethereum was built from scratch.
Okay. But how about like the Dogecoin and all the other coins? Mention a few of the most popular coins that you transact or you track.
Some of the more popular altcoins out there are Litecoin.
So like here on the screen, we're going to show some of the logos, right? Like Litecoin, what else?
So Litecoin, you've got Dogecoin, you've got, well, there's a whole lot of other coins. And I think if we go to a website, can we go to a website and I can show you? Sure. Okay, try to go to coinmarketcap.com.
Let's type it up here, coinmarketcap.com. So here we got Henrycoinmarketcap.com. Tell us about it.
So this is a website that I use basically to keep track of a lot of information with regards to Bitcoin and all other altcoins. And so what you can see there at the top, the number one coin that there is Bitcoin because it was the original. It's still the most valuable. You can see that the market cap is currently, $170 billion. Okay, and you can see the price, which is currently at $9,300. And then underneath Bitcoin, you can see a whole list of other altcoins.
So we have here, for example, Ethereum, XRP, Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah. So one of the questions I often get is
here Litecoin, the one that you mentioned.
Correct.
Before. Okay.
And so sometimes are all of these competitors to Bitcoin? That's a typical question that I get asked, and the answer is no. Not all of them are competitors. They are much more than anything experimental coins, meaning that these are projects that other people have taken aside and are currently working on them.
But they're not that much. It's a $500 million experiment, for example. Here
yeah, well, some of them, a lot of them,
for example, is like $594
right.
million.
So a lot of them have features, for example, that Bitcoin does not yet have. So, for example, you have Zcash and you have Dash at the top and Monero, and all of those have privacy features. So those are privacy coins. And with a privacy coin, it's just like Bitcoin, except that you cannot know what the number of bitcoins you cannot see what the number of bitcoins are on the blockchain that are contained on your wallet. So, for example, if you send me with your bitcoins, you send me some bitcoins over to me, I can go to the blockchain and I can take a look at the public key, and I can see exactly how many bitcoins you hold on that with that public key.
So I can map the public key to and certainly
yes,
in a way track you. Because
yes, you can track it.
If
Correct.
I can know your public key,
of course,
then I'd be like, that's Henry.
Exactly.
But you can fix it simply by creating a new wallet and transferring everything from your.
There's software that will allow you to track them.
But even if they can find the transaction, then they will know that now the new public key.
Correct. Yeah. So with privacy features, and there's different ways to go about providing that privacy feature. Then a lot of these coins, what they do is they prevent other people from tracking you down or from taking a look at your bottom line or whatever number of coins that you might have.
Got you. And tell us more about these other alter coins. Which ones do you recommend?
Let's go all the way to the top because I actually
give me one second,
have really good opinions on them.
All right, so we're gonna go back to the top.
Yes.
So Henry, here we have the CoinMarketCap. You said we have the first one, which is the Bitcoin, and then we have Ethereum, XRP.
Correct.
Bitcoin Cash.
Right.
So which one do you want to bring?
So let me give you an example. So number 2, you see on the list, Ethereum.
Correct.
Ethereum is a coin, a blockchain that focuses on smart contracts. Okay, and so there is a ton of development being done on Ethereum. A lot of applications are being built on top of it. And a lot of other coins called tokens are also built on top of the Ethereum blockchain. So you can think of Ethereum as Bitcoin, but it's mostly focused on smart contracts. which allow developers to create, an unlimited number of applications.
Well, I mean, if you are familiar with trading, actually, this is kind of like a very, very good chart. If you're familiar with this thing, you would be like, damn, look at this chart, Henry. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it went up, and then, but the volume was basically like about, like, I will say the volume was about maybe like 10% of what it is right now. Look at the volume here.
Correct.
So the volume has increased dramatically to the point that this is going to shoot up.
Of course, of course.
This is. I mean,
And as a matter of fact, I believe
we're not making here a representation of financing advice. We're not giving you any advice about buying or selling or doing absolutely nothing, but for educational purposes only. I have to bring that
so
disclaimer.
back in December of 2017, I think the price shot up all the way to $1,400, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, look at here. So it was around 1,000. When did we record our show last time?
It was about 2 years ago. It was early 2018.
Okay, so it was like around here,
Correct.
right? And then now it went down to $177, about that.
Right,
It's
and the
been
prices
stable.
seem to have bottomed.
Has bottom, but the volume has drastically increased
Correct.
substantially. That's we will have to analyze these charts a little bit more, but that's a sign that things are going to be moving in
Correct.
the upper direction, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like I said, this is nothing. But we're gonna go back then to other coins. So here back, and we're going to show what else.
So number 3 there, you see there's
XRP.
it's a coin called XRP. Now,
Is
I'm
it
gonna
XRP
give you.
like a private coin?
Well, here's the thing. Let me give you my honest to goodness opinion on XRP.
XRP is a company actually. right?
XRP, yes, it is a centralized
It's owned
company.
by is one of the investors. If you guys didn't know, is Ashton Kutcher.
Oh, really?
Was
Okay.
an investor there.
Yeah.
Like some people from the Silicon Valley are vested there, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
We're gonna double check after the show, but I think I'm almost certain it is.
Okay, and also, just so you know, and again, this is just my own personal opinion. I do not want to get sued by anybody on XRP, but XRP really is not centralized. Okay, there's a company behind it, just like you mentioned it, and the company can pretty much make decisions on their own with regards to the XRP, protocol and the coins that they hold. I believe a small number of the founders hold something like over 2/3 of the total number of coins. So
you're in a situation where the majority shareholder holds everything.
correct, yes.
And you're coming in to just kind of like basically potentially just hold it back.
Yeah, exactly,
Come
exactly.
back over.
And so a lot of people are complaining that basically they have to hold the bag on XRP. And my understanding is that the founders, because they have the majority of the coins, they hold the majority of the coins, they periodically dump these coins out on the market, and so that puts a pressure on the price.
Yeah, so they keeps there's basically having a company where you have no control, and then the owner just keeps selling the shares.
Correct.
And then your valuation keeps just going down, and who knows who's buying the shares?
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so let's go to number 4 and 5, Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV.
Okay.
And so what these are forks or copies of Bitcoin. Okay, so what happened was,
And in fact, it looks like a very similar chart. I don't know if we can overlay the two charts simultaneously here, but I think they both are very similar.
Yeah, they correlate with each other. But just so you know, so what happened was that there were some differences between an early founder of Bitcoin, and he decided to basically create his own coin. The differences had to do with regards to the way that Bitcoin would scale. Because some people thought that Bitcoin should scale by making the blocks bigger. In other words, so that each block on the blockchain would hold more transactions. But the main developers on Bitcoin decided that the best way to scale would be to build an application on top of the original chain.
Excellent.
So there were creative differences. And then Bitcoin SV, if you go back, which is number 5, that was a fork off of Bitcoin Cash, which is another.
So you're saying basically that the Catholic Church split into
Yes,
the Protestant Church,
so,
and the Protestant Church split
yes,
into
exactly.
into the
Exactly.
whatever
So
Lutherans and
biggest,
the other
so
one.
a lot of contentious differences there, and so you're gonna see you do see a lot of that in crypto. People have different ideas, and when they have different ideas, because the software is open source, they can go out and create their own version.
But it appears that they have gathered some traction because both are substantially large amounts of market capitalization that are not negligible.
Oh yeah,
anymore.
they do have some quite a lot of traction. Yeah,
Here, I mean, I can
Dogecoin is
verify
actually
that.
very useful. Let me tell you why. Because it is very, very cheap to transact with. The transactions are very, very small. And because there are billions and billions of Dogecoins readily available, in the supply, then you can just hand out the Dogecoins and it would cost you very little. So, for example, I remember one time that I think I gave you like 1,000 Dogecoins. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I
I
remember that.
remember I had 1,000 Dogecoins, and those, but it really it came out to something like 40 cents.
Yeah.
It was really a small amount in terms of
Value, yeah.
value. But it was fun that I would give you something like that, because now what you could do is you can take those Dogecoins and you can give them out or use them to tip people, tip services. So Dogecoin is useful in that sense, because it can be used for, especially for people who are just starting out in crypto, to try to understand how to, use the cryptos, send it back and forth
Got it.
between people in order to learn without it costing too much, you see.
Perfect. So tell us one more thing here before we wrap up with this episode, Henry. I think like we're running out of time. Okay, excellent news. Thank you very much for joining us, Henry.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everybody, for joining TechEDTV today. I hope you learned a ton from Henry. And Henry has you have a tag and the Twitter, so people can follow you?
Currently, I don't. I like to keep my privacy, but maybe next time I'll give you one.
All right. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care.